Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, Tommy Vietor, co-founder of Crooked Media, also host of Pod Save America. And you guys have multiple shows over there, don't you?
We're trying. I have a show I do about foreign policy that's fun. Love it does some comedy stuff. So, we're all just trying to stay afloat here with the anxiety.
I'm sure the foreign policy is a lot of fun these days.
Maybe
we will touch on that in the context of the race. We're now, what did I say earlier? Was it 10 days?
10 days. We're
10 days and
down.
13 hours.
Yeah.
We round down here. So some may say 11. We say 10, 13 hours. Give us a sense of what your sense is of the state of the race. Where are you on, we see the polling and it's sort of all, I don't want to say it's all over the place, but what's your sense of where we're at this point?
I mean, all the public polling's in the margin of error. When you talk to people on the campaign about their private data, they say the same thing, and what everyone is sort of setting you up to see on election day and election week really is that there's 7 battleground states. Seemingly all of them are in the margin of error. It's all going to be a question of what the turnout universe looks like and who is able to turn their people out and what that kind of last week or two of momentum, which way people break. So I just feel like it's incredibly close and I hate it.
And I mean, do you see it as close as the media is portraying? I mean, this is a little bit of my frustration has been that yesterday Marist had polling that showed that Trump was effectively tied with Harris in 3 must-win states for him. Yeah. Georgia, Arizona, and North Carolina. If he loses any of those states, it's hard to imagine that he wins the race. And so when you look at the consistency across these must-win states for both Trump and Harris, I get a little bit annoyed when I hear constantly on cable news that this is the closest race in history, because frankly, to me, it feels self-serving. Stay glued to your television sets. This is as anxiety-inducing as you could imagine. And at the end of the day, I feel like I've heard this is the closest race ever a few times in my short lifetime on this planet.
Yeah, I think we all have. Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, I think there's a New York Times national poll out today that had it tied. I think that was spinning people up. But honestly, that was less worrisome to me than if I'd seen, a Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin poll showing Harris down or slipping. So I think you're right. Like in the key battleground states, there have been some consistent numbers showing her up a bit. I think everyone is just kind of scarred by 2016, scarred by the polling misses in 2020, and just unsure if there's been a realignment in terms of voting habits, in terms of the makeup of the parties, and who's going to come out. We just don't know.
What is your, I mean, I have a sense of this. I mean, I've been trying to follow, I don't know, probably about 5 or 6 or 7 people making analyses of early voting, mail-in ballots, partisan divides. John Ralston in Nevada, longtime Nevada writer, says this doesn't look good for Democrats, but there are others who push back on that. We're looking at partisan divides as opposed to independent divides or non-party affiliated, I guess they call it in Nevada. It is driving me nearly insane. I'm curious if you have any insights into this stuff.
Yeah, it's driving me completely insane too. I mean, I think John Ralston is someone who's very smart and well-respected and knows his beat better than, most reporters ever will, which is just Nevada politics. The thing that drives me crazy about early vote numbers is I distinctly remember in 2016, a big segment on MSNBC where one of the kind of daily early vote gurus was saying that based on in Florida.
Right. I remember this.
That Hillary was going to win by 9 or something. You guys remember this? So,
yes, I do remember that.
This has made me just like a nihilist when it comes to early vote, especially when you consider that we're trying to compare it to 2020 and we're trying to compare it to a time when Donald Trump was telling everybody to vote on election day and not vote early. And now there's an infrastructure pushing people to vote early on the Republican side. So I don't know. I just sort of think we'll get the numbers when we get them. I can't get myself to focus on it.
Let's talk about that infrastructure. I mean, I want to get to sort of the themes of the campaigns in the final days, both, judge them on their own terms, but also, on ours. But in terms of campaign apparatus, get out the vote campaigns, one of the things that the early voting does seem to show is that they were able to make that change in behavior by Republicans, right?
Mhm.
Like Donald Trump had said, you need to hand in your ballot. Do not mail it in because of all the shenanigans that goes
Right.
on. Of course, everybody knows that as soon as you put it into the mailbox, it's surveilled, and your propensity to vote for Trump is evaluated. In that case, the vote is stolen and taken
By
into a
Hugo
secret
Chavez.
location.
Yes,
Right. We
yes,
X-ray
yes.
it first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is your sense of the Get Out the Vote projects? I mean, I've read stuff that in Arizona and Nevada, the leaked logs show that they're knocking on 20, or they're not doing that. Their paid canvassers are lying about 25% of the door knocks that they're doing. But what's your sense of this, both on the Republican side, but also I wonder if you have any insights to the Democratic side.
Yeah, I know. I think Emma's right that the fact that Hugo Chavez died in 2013 is going to make it harder for us to steal this one. But I mean, like if I'm when it comes to just GOTV and field, I think that those efforts move numbers on the margins, like 0.5% to 1%, and that's like a sad and scary thing for a person who worked in Democratic politics to say, because you kind of feel like there's billions of dollars and all this work done, and it's kind of borderline worthless. But in a race this close, that can make a difference. If I were the Harris campaign, they have real internal infrastructure that's controlled by professional people. It's top down. I would feel good about a lot of those battleground state efforts. The Trump effort is like outsourced to Elon Musk and a bunch of random super PACs. It's outsourced to Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. And as you noted, Sam, there was this Reuters report that showed that people were saying they knocked on a door that was like 2 miles away from where they were, sitting at a restaurant having a beer. So there's a lot of reasons to think there's some smoke and mirrors. Now, if there's a big, late decider surge towards Trump, I think that's going to swamp all field efforts. But, in terms of just who's doing it better, I have faith in the Harris campaign.
Well, that's also my question for you, because, I mean, you're an Obama alum, right? And the Obama coalition is not what it was, obviously, in 2008. I mean, Obama was able to motivate a lot of mid to low propensity voters and younger people. I mean, Harris is obviously winning with younger people, but it's a different, to me from the outside, I'm not a pollster, but it appears to me that they're targeting basically high propensity voters to raise their floor, and they're banking on Donald Trump not being able to change the dynamics of the race going forward, and included in that pool of high propensity voters. And again, this is Biden's entire campaign infrastructure, right? So they're using all the data that they collected, not just in 2024 for this race, but in 2020 to build out this model of who they're targeting. That's why I think I don't love this. I love Liz Cheney. Mark Cuban is my surrogate, not doing so much stuff with Sean Fain recently. We'll go for do appeal to the business press and that kind of thing. Like, I don't like it, but I also see that based on the model and game plan that they had set forward, it makes sense that they're targeting these never Trump Republicans. Do I think it bodes well, I think, for the future of the Democratic coalition? I'm not sure. But I guess, what's your view of that? Because it's not our politics, obviously, but I can also see why they're doing it, given the circumstances of the race, Harris entering so late and being so poorly defined to the public at this point.
Yeah, I think from what I've read and the people I've talked to, it does sound like there's kind of like two late surges in terms of outreach and targeting. One is younger Black men, and that's why you see her on like All the Smoke. She's doing Club Shay Shay podcast in a little bit. She was on the Breakfast Club, right? There's a lot of effort there. And then you're right, though, it does seem like they think that there's a lot of sort of soft Republican women that don't like Trump, don't like his abortion policy, and are gettable. And they think that, Liz Cheney on stage with Kamala Harris kind of gives them a permission to feel like, okay, I can vote for this party. There's a place for me. I'm welcome. I don't know if that's smart. I'm as worried about it as you are, just because I worry about everything. But it does seem like that's what their data is telling them to do. So we'll see.
Well,
Right.
I want to take both those things. It seems like it's a problem if Harris is worried about, young black men at this stage in the campaign. I mean, right? Like that would be, I don't know, like Trump saying on some level, maybe not quite this level of like, I'm losing divorced 50-year-old white guys. Like that. I mean, it's sort of,
it's like Trump losing white women, which he is right now by a good amount, Sam. So,
yeah,
right? That's how he won in 2016.
Yeah. But that's not, I mean, that's, yeah, I guess. And it's unclear that we are, I mean, he doesn't seem to, I mean, to the extent that the Trump campaign has a sense of what's going on, they're not making a late pitch, to those people. So I wonder, like, how, in terms of their, I guess the totality of the idea of what Harris is doing, I get it too, that they think that there are these votes out there. In fact, let's play this clip of, this is what I think sort of like the strategy references. This is the mayor of Waukesha, Wisconsin. He's a Republican, and this is like, he's speaking out to give a certain permission structure. But let's listen to this report from Fox 6, Wisconsin's Jason Calvi.
It's a Republican city in Wisconsin's largest Republican county.
It's difficult. I mean, the easy thing to do is to just not say anything.
Waukesha Mayor Sean Riley grew up Republican and voted that way for most of his adult life.
I also feel just in my heart that this is something that I need to come out and say.
Saying something that might upset the people who put him in office.
I am going to be voting for Vice President Harris to become our next president.
Riley tells me he voted third party in 2016, voted for President Joe Biden in 2020, but kept that to himself. For other offices, he says he votes Republican more often.
All right,
than
we
not.
don't need to
Now
hear
this
any more. I mean, stay tuned for the report in the next 7 days where his house gets vandalized.
Right.
But I mean, that's the whole theory of their case, right? But one of the things that worries about me is he was never a Trump voter. And 2016, 2020, he's definitely progressed. But how many votes does that get, Harris, in that instance?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're kind of looking for like the Nikki Haley voters, right? And there are pockets of them. I guess what's so challenging about this kind of targeting is I think the New York Times, in one of their more recent polls or analysis, said that they think there's about 1.2 or 1.3 million persuadable voters or truly undecided voters left in the 7 battleground states. The Trump people think there's like 5% of the electorate in those states are persuadable or undecided. The Harris people think it's closer to 10%. So everyone's kind of looking at the same electorate, but making different decisions based on who they think is gettable based on their own data. So I'm with you, like everything's going to matter on the margins. I think you can certainly say there's an opportunity cost to messaging with, the sort of Liz Cheney voter, that you might lose folks who are really young and progressive and concerned about Gaza, for example. I think ultimately you reach those people in very different ways through different channels and programs and things. And that's why like doing a campaign in 2024 is so complicated. But I'm with you. Like it's not a risk-free strategy.
If you look at like the advertising buys now, it really is focused on everything is sort of dropped except for the character issue, which gets around sort of like is again geared towards would-be Trump voters at the margins who are just sick of it. But in that same piece you're talking about, that New York Times piece, they also said that they took all this data from undecideds who watched, and they listed off like all of her media appearances, and they found the best response was to her Medicare proposal to cover elderly people, home health care.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if they have that data, like where is that on the campaign? I mean, I will accept that there's a limited number of people they're campaigning to. I I think their strategy may be a little bit blinkered. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But where's that?
I think you're right. I mean, I think she wants to expand Medicaid to cover in-home healthcare for like 15 million seniors. And I don't know if you guys have ever had someone in your life who hits that age who needs in-home care. It is
100%.
shockingly expensive, jaw-dropping, eyes-watering, unaffordable expensive. And so I'm glad she's talking about this. I think it came up and she talked about it on The View. But I think what you're getting at, Sam, is like the hardest part of a campaign is you can go out and talk about those things, but they don't always get covered. So you end up chasing the kind of shiny object of the Mark Milley, John Kelly comments about Hitler and fascism at the end. And honestly, that worries me a little bit. Like this is like you're getting at the central debate that's going on within all the big super PACs and all the campaigns, which is they message test all these ads, right? They put in a bunch of people with, Xbox joysticks who say they vote up or vote down if this thing works or not. Maybe there's some art and science there. I don't know. Like, I think we should question the efficacy of some of this testing, but it's worth doing. The ads that test the best are the bread and butter healthcare, abortion messages, the ones that feature Kamala Harris talking or real people talking. But the things that, CNN, Pod Save America talk about are these like new information, shiny object events. And you just get pushed and pulled constantly at the close of a campaign to figure out what to focus on. And it's just really hard.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.